So my inspiration for this video was, I was trying to make a video about how to efficiently use heavy machine guns in Reforger, and then I noticed that they're virtually useless in most situations. Or to say differently, the use cases are extremely narrow, so most players won't put in the effort to try it. And I think it's related to the lack of suppression systems. Now I know that this topic has been talked about before, and I think Clamarch said that they don't want to add some type of physical suppression effect for players. Now I think the game should have it, but it's probably too late to convince them otherwise. So here's a different idea for suppression. And now for this to make any sense, okay, I'll start with the idea. Now ask yourself, what does a player fear in Reforger? Like, a player fears probably two things: being taken out of combat and having to go long distance back into combat. Now the problem is, that's a beautiful system, but it's short-circuited by players being able to spawn almost everywhere and the radio backpacks and all of that. So what other thing does a player fear? Because suppression is about making the player fear something so it doesn't do something. The other thing the player fears is access to gear. Now, they recently added that type of gating system where you have to have a certain rank to access gear. Now, what if a player dies, he loses half a rank progression? Let's say you're a corporal. Your character dies, you respawn. Then you lose like 50% of your progression of rank, which means if you're corporal plus 40% to the next rank, you would get bumped down to 10% below corporal. Now that may sound harsh, but I think it's the only way that would make a player realistically duck from incoming fire because he knows he has something to lose. And that especially relates to heavy machine guns. Because let's look at how useless they are currently. Okay, I'll set it up at some different area. Okay, where's the airfield? No, the airfield, the runway is exactly 1 kilometer. I'll put a 50 cal machine gun up here. Teleport the character. And I'll put a truck at approximately 500 meters. Okay, one like that. Let's put it so you can see better like that. That's about 400 meters away. And I'm going to put a human-sized target there. Okay, now let's get into the 50 cal. No, you don't have any optics on it. You see, the human-sized target is really hard to see against the background. Even though it's almost a blue sky. See, it's really hard to find the human-sized target. Now the track is easier to see at that distance. Okay, now this shows we're at 400 meters. Now at 400 meters, if the target wouldn't move and not do anything, it would be somehow in a more hidden background, like between trees. You probably wouldn't notice the target until it starts moving or starts shooting at you. And if you go down to 600-700 meters, I think at 800 meters or 1,000 meters, they will stop rendering. Even before that, depending on your screen resolution, it's like probably 1 pixel in size. So the problem is, let's say you got an enemy truck you want to shoot at. Okay, then that's the only use for a heavy machine gun, is to perhaps hit the engine block of a vehicle with 5 or 6 shots to kill the engine block, then it can't drive anymore. But for fighting enemy players, it's pretty bad because you only got 50 or 100 rounds. I think it's 100 in this one. And you're a stationary target and you're extremely noisy. And you can only see and effectively shoot at targets or identify them at 400 meters. Now you could say if you are an infantryman, you have the same problem without a scope. But the thing is, you're a moving target and you're not stuck to a specific position. And here's the thing, if somebody's an experienced Arma player, he probably knows a few things about 50 caliber machine guns or the same or the Russian equivalent. When he's getting shot at, he probably knows the thing was placed somewhere in a strategic location where it has a wide field of fire, because most players would set it up somewhere. Second thing he knows, if it's getting shot at from 600-700 meters away, he knows the shooter probably can't even see him. He probably gets a shooting accuracy from a player with a binocular, or he's just aiming randomly at pixels. And if you just spam rounds at 500 or 600 meters, let me switch on the ballistics, projectiles. Shot trajectory. Okay, let's say I'm firing. Let's see, I saw a pixel move behind the truck. I'm gonna fire some shots. Okay, now what's your chance at 300 or 400 meters of actually hitting a player who's peeking out behind the truck? You could say pretty good. Maybe you hit 1 or 2 shots, but most of them will be near misses. Now, will those near misses stop the player who is mobile and has an assault rifle from actually shooting back at you accurately? You would say no, because you, as a player, you know 2 things. He has a really hard time seeing you, and even if you die in the game, the respawn doesn't really matter. You probably have a backpack spawn or some other proximity spawn where you can get to. Now, would it matter in real life? If you get shot at by 50 caliber, it would probably matter, yes. And it would matter more than getting shot at by an assault rifle. Because in real life, you probably know if 50 caliber hits something, it probably tears off limbs. If a 5.56 hits something, it's bad too, but it's nowhere near as bad. So a person would fear 50 caliber much more than it would fear a 5.56 rifle shooting at them. Now you see why the missing suppression effects are a problem here, because a 50 caliber machine gun is a death trap for the shooter because no player fears it. Because at 500-600 meters, they just know that they're almost invisible to it. So they can just accurately shoot back until they hit the guy. And at much less investment, because a rifleman with an M16 who spawns in with minimum costs with a basic kit costs almost nothing for the team, whereas setting up a 50 caliber machine gun, driving it somewhere, assembling it, putting in the ammo, having a guy wait for targets to show up, that's a lot more effort you have to put into it, which makes them useless in the current state of the game. And that's why I say the game should have not only losing half a rank for each character death, because then players really fear losing their stuff. If a player dies an especially violent death by a specific large caliber weapon, it should be double the penalty. That means if you get taken out by 50 cal, you lose an entire ranks of progression. Because then you bring back the fear of large caliber weapons shooting at the players. And I'll also make a point about suppression effects. I think suppression comes down to 2 things. The immediate effect of something almost hitting you and the fear and reaction it produces, which is like ducking, twitching or something. And the secondary effect, the intimidation effect, which is more like you know there's a certain type of danger, so you avoid even going near it. That's like the area denial purpose of machine guns or heavy weapons in general. Like, let's say, for example, you know there's a machine gun set up somewhere in the tree line here and it's looking down that direction. Now, in real life, an experienced soldier would probably not run across the field for the potential danger of being exposed to the weapon. They probably go through the tree line or go somewhere around it or stay out of range of it. But in Arma, you don't have that incentive because it doesn't matter. And another point I often hear is like about suppression. See, people say that an experienced soldier doesn't duck from incoming fire. And I think that's not true. Like, even if people say like, they show like videos of people like not ducking from almost misses. Those are usually hand-picked footage from people using helmet cameras or something where they don't panic. Because normally people don't want to release videos of themselves panicking in situations like that. So I think the evidence for people not ducking for incoming fire, it's a bit skewed because the incentive behind releasing a certain type of video. And that brings me back to the original point, which is a player without anything is more dangerous than a 50 caliber machine gun. And because Arma is a game that tries to replicate realistic combat situations, it needs to do something that reproduces the danger and the intimidating effect of 50 caliber weapons. And currently it's too much effort to position one, to man it and wait for targets, which means most players won't take it serious as a target. And they could still like add some type of suppression, like I showed in the previous video, like in Red Orchestra 2. Basically, you would shoot, and if something would like fly past you on the left side of the screen, then your view would basically, it's hard to reproduce. Basically, it feels like your left shoulder gets pushed back, gently pushed back, and your aim gets swayed in that direction slightly towards the trajectory. And that would be a great imitation of real-life suppression, because as a bullet flies by, the involuntary effect of twitching when something comes in. And I think it's involuntary, and I think it's very hard to, I would say, train yourself to ignore it. Because to go back to the argument about the experienced soldier who don't fear suppression. But here's the thing, an experienced soldier, as I mentioned earlier in the video, he would avoid putting himself in a dangerous situation. He would have that strategic level of suppression where he knows there might be something dangerous in the tree line. So he's not even going to expose himself to that thing or get in the situation where it might be potentially dangerous. And that's something players also not do, because character depth doesn't matter much in this game. And if players would lose rank, they lose access to gear, access to heavy equipment, and I think that would create that incentive to fear weapons in this game. And the ultimate argument is just look at DayZ. Like in DayZ, you lose absolutely everything on your character if your character dies. And it's, I think, the most successful game that Bohemia ever created. And I think currently the player base is probably 40,000, 50,000 players per day.